Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sustainable Happiness Through Many Firsts on this beautiful beach at the Strive Life Summit in January 2025. And it's the beginning of a new year, at least I would say for many, if not most or all of us. Not everyone is celebrating a new year right now in this world, but let's assume most of us are. I hope you are excited about the year to come. I certainly am, and it is because I know that it will be filled with many first times, a lot of adventure, and it will be about me to keep building my sustainable, lasting happiness. And that's also what we're going to learn and practice today. And that's why I'm even more excited about it, because you will also be creating first times, and you will be creating them consciously, and you will be seeing and experiencing what the positive impact from that is on your year and life. Are you ready to start? We will be diving right into first times. And I would like to ask you, who is at the Strive Life Summit for the first time? I certainly am. For who is it the 1st January of 2025? I guess for most of us as well. Anyway, if this is again January, and if this is the calendar we follow. Who has already done some physical exercise today, like for maybe something you did for the first time? Maybe not so many of us, but how about we all do some jumping jacks today? Maybe for the first time, and even if not, just do them again. In whichever way it's possible for you, maybe just with the arms a bit up and down or moving the legs a bit. But those of us who can, let's jump up and down for at least 5 times. Jumping jack, jumping jack, jumping jack. 4, 5. Good. Well done, well done, well done. We will keep creating first times, so be prepared, and also make sure that you have some water next to you so that you stay hydrated and your brain stays juicy and is just absorbing all that we're creating here, all these powerful first times. I would like to invite you to really listen carefully and look carefully and really observe all the first times that you hear or see as we're going through this workshop, and start writing them down. So ideally, if you can grab a pen, a piece of paper, also make sure that you're not disturbed and can really, really focus and really start to become conscious about first times and the power they have, and in the end, the power that you have to create the life of your dreams. Talking about dreams, I would like to start with a quote and start sharing my screen and some slides. So you should be seeing this quote now. It is by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and it says, "There are dreams of love, life, and adventure in all of us, but we're also sadly filled with reasons why we shouldn't try. These reasons seek to protect us, but in truth, they imprison us. They hold life at a distance. Life will be over sooner than we think. If we have bikes to ride and people to love, now is the time. Now is the time to start collecting firsts." So the list that you are creating now for this workshop will remain your list for the rest of your life, hopefully, where you can just every now and then, it's maybe not for every individual and every single first time that you create in your life, but whenever you have a moment, just keep track of them, just write them down, because it will give you a very nice kind of feel also for the progress you're making and for how far you're coming with these, and really also allow you to sometimes pause and just go through that list and be proud of yourself. Now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she was a Swiss-American psychiatrist, and we will get back to her and the model that she created a bit later in the workshop today. But let's dive into firsts and where they happen and when they happen, because they are typically the beginning of something new. And if we want to get from a state that we're in now to a desired future state, we need to change something about what we're doing, right? About what we're thinking. And yeah, to get into that, we need first times. We need to, it is a bit like breaking out of a spiral, which we can also sometimes call routines. If we keep repeating routine after routine after routine, of course, what we experience will remain more or less the same. But if we want to experience something different, it takes these courageous first steps into something new. Now, the question is, where do these firsts happen and when? And let me tell you that they can happen anywhere and anytime. And the beauty is that there are really, it's in our power to create first times actively. And ideally, of course, to create healthy, meaningful, functional first times that really lead us into the direction of the dream of the life we want to live. And so really, let's just make that very clear. We're talking here about these first times, these meaningful, healthy, functional ones. Then, because of course, we could also create, let's say, a first time binge eating on ice cream, for example. But if we really want to get into living the healthiest life we can, this first time would probably not take us in the right direction, right? So it's really about the powerful ones. So there are the ones that we can create ourselves. But then there's also first times that happen in the world around us. There are things that we encounter for the first time, that we hear for the first time, smell for the first time, taste for the first time, touch for the first time. And it is about creating awareness and being present with these first times. And I would like to share a story with you about the first time that happened in the most mundane, I would say, situations of life for me. And it was in a bathroom of a public conference center. It happened on a day, it was an early summer evening, the day had been quite warm. I had been spending it in the office. So it actually also in a workshop in the office. So I had really been in a room with people all day long. And when sometimes there's not enough space, for example, at a meeting table, so you're sitting really quite close to each other, you get to smell all the smells, of what's, let's say, coffee, tea, people. So it's been a day like that. And I was finally on the train on my commute back to where I live, not to go back home because I was on the way to my dance practice. And this dance practice took place in a conference center. So as I was approaching the conference center, it was a very cheerful atmosphere outside. It was golden evening light. There were some people outside, teenagers, children coming from school playing. There was a playground there, and adults also just kind of chatting. And so it was quite crowded, a bit like a bazaar, the atmosphere of a bazaar. And I made my way into the conference center, and I needed the bathroom. So I saw the sign at the back of the kind of entry hall. And yeah, just as I entered the bathroom, I was suddenly there was a moment of peace and quiet opening for me, because I had been busy with people and hearing voices and sounds and all day long. And now I opened this door, and the bathroom, to my surprise, was empty. Okay, it was not a very big one. There were only 2 cubicles, and bear with me for the details, but it's just to really picture the scene for you. So I got in, I saw both cubicles were free. It was also, a bathroom with a window, and it was half open, so fresh air was coming in, it was clean. So I took the second cubicle, and just as I was sitting down and really enjoying my peace and quiet, it was not for long. I could hear how the door opened, and then there were steps coming in, and they stopped in front of my cubicle. And before I knew it, the handle of the cubicle was going up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was about to say, "It's occupied." But before I got there, there was a voice outside that screamed, "Daddy!" from outside the bathroom. "Yes, sweetie." From inside again, "It's too late." When I heard that, my irritation turned into empathy right away. And I was even wondering, why did I choose this cubicle, right? Why couldn't I have stepped into the other one so that the way for the girl would have been free? But it was too late anyway. And as I was opening the cubicle door to go to the wash basin and wash my hands, the father of the girl had come into the bathroom. He was holding her in his arms. And as I walked past them to the wash basin, I heard the girl say, "You know, now everyone will say she still doesn't get it. She still wets her pants." When I heard that, I was shocked. I couldn't believe my ears. Is that when it happens? At that age? The girl was only about 3, maximum 4 years old. And obviously, she already had this fear of being judged by others in her. I'm not sure if I really washed my hands. I hope I did. But as I was walking past the girl and her father on my way out, all I wanted to do was to hug the girl who I didn't even know, right? And just tell her how beautiful she was and how I knew that she was very powerful and so much stronger than she probably believed she was. And no matter what they say out there, when I got to the door, it hit me. I realized that there was so much of that girl inside of me, that I had been walking around with that fear of being judged by others for way too many years. And it was a voice inside of me that very clearly said, "Stop it. It's time to stop it." And as I walked up the stairs to our dance practice room, I decided that instead of hiding in the back rows during the practice, I would move forward on that day for the first time. That I would not be standing in the back. And even if it's maybe not the front row yet, that I would move forward, making myself more visible. I did it on that night. Was it comfortable? No, it was not. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Why that it takes discomfort to actually build this lasting happiness that we all want in our lives. And to understand this discomfort a bit better, I would like to introduce the change curve to you. It's a model that was created by or is based on the studies by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the psychiatrist that we heard the quote from a few minutes ago. So she worked with people who actually were ill, and it was clear that they would die soon. And that's, of course, I mean, a big change, right? To get this news, to just, yeah, to hear it for the first time and then to start to ideally accept it, or, yeah, whichever way. So she really analyzed how people reacted to such a dramatic change. Her model is often used in what is called organizational change management in the corporate world, for example, still as a basis also today, even though, of course, there has been additional research in the meantime and so on. But I think the model in a very simple way, as we see it here, is very helpful for us to understand why these first times are uncomfortable. And it is actually our natural psychological response to change. When something changes, that's what you can see here in the picture, these are the phases that we typically go through. So there is something like shock in the beginning, or often also denial, that we don't want to believe it, right? It's often really not, doesn't make us feel good when we notice, hey, I need to change something, or my life will just not change. It's not a very comfortable truth. So sometimes we prefer to be a bit in denial and just think, no, 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 let me just ignore it, and continue like before. There can also be frustration because it basically means that we need to give up, routines, which can also be understood as the identity that we have, how we define ourselves. If a change is required, it means we have to change how we see ourselves in this world, right? So this is maybe not the most uplifting thought in the beginning, and it can really lead to people dipping into something that is sometimes called a valley of despair, into sadness, into depression. But eventually, what naturally happens is that then there will be a stage where we become curious, where we are opening up to a new way, to new thoughts, to the change in the end. And we start approaching ourselves to it. We start experimenting with it. And typically, after a while, we have accepted that this is the new way of doing things. And when we look back, it's actually often the case that we think, it's actually better than before, or for sure not worse. And when that becomes the new everyday, then we have full integration. So these are the phases we go through, and it depends on an individual situation, for how long we stay in one of these phases. And we may not always go through all of them, but just being aware that this is what typically happens, that knowledge helped me personally, for example, very much in, just keeping the belief, the courage, the power to just keep going in phases of change and transformation, because I know now I'm maybe still in denial, but I actually know that there will be other phases coming up, and I have it in my power to make sure I move on faster, because as soon as we understand that this is what's happening, it also helps us to accelerate and to go through the curve and move along the curve faster. It also helps us to understand others better. If we are aware that someone else is going through a change, through a transformation, we can understand better at what stage of that whole process they may be. So clearly, this leads to empathy and understanding, something that I think is definitely something we could never have too little of in this world. Now, if we look at this curve, what happened to me once when I was in France, actually, you see the picture there, in a gorge in France with a suspension bridge across it. When I was standing on the bridge, I actually saw, you can call it professional deformation or so, whatever you would like to call it, but I really saw the change curve in front of me, like the gorge, the valley that goes down. I was thinking of, yeah, this is a kind of a picture for the valley of despair. We are down there, but there is a suspension bridge. And thanks to the suspension bridge, we can get to the other end, to the other side, more comfortably, faster and higher up, right? Instead of really dipping deep down into depression and sadness and helplessness and victimhood and being and feeling lost. What if we could just go on a suspension bridge, which may still not be very comfortable, because suspension bridges are often shaky, right? Especially if there's other people on it with us as well. So this thing moves, and this may almost give us an upset stomach at times. And then if we look down, we can still see, right, that it's going down a long way yeah, it's an option that we could go down there, but if we, and sometimes we may dip down a bit, and I wanted to indicate that in the picture with the orange, you know, kind of arrow there. So we may at times become a bit hopeless or helpless and dip down a bit, but because there's other people on the bridge and there's maybe even a bungee jump like rope that will just bring us back up. And in the end, what that means, what that symbolizes, is that we get across into the experimental phase and the acceptance space much faster than if we go really deep down into the valley of despair. So, how do we build such a suspension bridge that brings us across faster? And actually, in the world out there, like really the suspension bridges, wherever they are built, typically also in Nepal, for example, there are many hundreds of suspension bridges. What they do for people is they make lives easier, again, as shaky as they are. So there is a discomfort connected to it as we step onto them. But they, for example, make connections from villages to schools much more viable, right? And schools in that sense more accessible for people, or also hospitals and institutions. So again, with all the shakiness they have, they are very helpful to have in life, these suspension bridges. And again, back to the change curve. So it is all about getting into bouncing back faster. And that means if we can stay in experimenting more regularly as a lifestyle, you know, as a practice, then we basically just always know that we have experimenting available, no matter if we are facing something that frustrates us or that we don't want to believe at first. If experimenting is our routine, our nature, it's a tool that's always with us, that we can use at all times, and that keeps us on the way up at all times as well. Because we keep experimenting no matter what. We keep knowing that there's always new ways, new approaches, and it also adds a playfulness to our life. So, with all the sadness and the heaviness that life and its challenges sometimes bring, there's also this piece of playfulness just through collecting first times consciously that it keeps our spirit more, you know, uplifted and our hopes higher. So with that, I have already touched upon a few things that a many firsts lifestyle brings. The resilience in bouncing back, right? Even if we dip a bit into a valley of despair, if we keep experimenting, we continuously keep building the habit of remaining in an uncomfortable space, because experimenting means creating first times, means it's uncomfortable, but we're doing this over and over again, and it becomes second nature to us. So very clearly our resilience is going up. We can be on a shaky suspension bridge, but we know we are standing on our feet. We are used to experimenting. We are used to meeting newness with open arms, maybe holding on to the rail of the suspension bridge we're on. But clearly we know and we trust that this is a skill we have to just keep standing strong. It also, of course, fosters our courage, because again, for first times, we step into newness again and again, and this takes courage. And we will talk more about courage in a few minutes. It also, if we practice keeping or staying in this experimental state as an approach to our life, we also have reasons to celebrate over and over again, because we keep creating these new experiences, we keep creating first times, And by the way, this can also mean in how we respond to an event that happens outside, right? It's not always in our control to create a first time, but the first time can also be created in how we take it, how we respond to it. So there's a lot to celebrate, and even celebrating ourselves maybe first time, many of us are uncomfortable first when they start practicing this, but that will become more and more natural and second nature. As I mentioned before, we are also building our empathy as we understand better what it means when we meet other people, and we're just aware that there may be whatever kind of changes and transformations going on for them. So a lot more understanding. What it also does is, of course, it creates stories, because in the end, and I see that a lot with the podcast guests that I have on the Manifest podcast, what we talk about is the first times, is these stories when shifts happened, when we had just an aha moment, when we were in awe at life, and just so magic that happened in the end, right? Things that we do not really fully understand in the moment, but when we look back, we understand that because that had happened for the first time, we are where we are now. And that's in the end, we want stories, right? There's a whole industry, Netflix, everything is about stories. So imagine what it could bring to your life if you, with your many firsts lifestyle, keep creating stories to tell, and what that could do, for example, to you as a person, as a business also, because you have stories and stories sell. That's it. In the end, it's what we've always kind of done, storytelling, right? It's in the human nature and the human soul. And of course, a many first lifestyle keeps us creative, because there's infinitely many first times that we can create in all kinds of areas of our lives. It can be in the mental space, right? Like thinking new thoughts or getting rid of thoughts that no longer serve us. It can be in the physical space, like doing jumping jacks for the first time today, or for the first time this year, or taking up a new activity, or whatever, in the physical space, then also in the emotional space, or in the financial space, in the social space, in the geographical space. There's so many first times, and creativity is also something that, yeah, we just want to express ourselves, right? So the firsts can always be tailored to who you are, and to where you are in your life. Also, very clearly, when we live a many firsts lifestyle, we remain curious, because we want to learn, we want to experience. And with that comes flexibility also, because often we do not really know yet how an experience will be for us. So even if we may have an idea or a desire for something to evolve in a specific way, we wouldn't know, right? So we need to remain flexible. And that's, interestingly, I think, one of the superpowers in today's world, especially as we keep hearing and saying that it's a very fast-paced world, right? So imagine if, going with the flow, if we remain more flexible and can, in an agile way, also respond to what's happening around us. Imagine, yeah, again, I like to say it's a superpower. And what I find very interesting with flexibility is that it is also something in the physical space, right? There is a whole science of mobility, of really stretching and moving our body, and becoming more flexible in the body. And I see, through my own practice, I see a very deep and powerful connection between keeping the body flexible and the mind. So it goes together, like body mind, right? We know it's all connected. But really, when we do a stretching exercise, there is also a certain discomfort at times, right? If it may be stretching a bit, it's not fully comfortable. And with breathing, adding conscious breathing, we can actually start to move a bit deeper into a stretching pose. And we see at times that we can actually reach further than we may have thought in the first place. But we may also discover that our body isn't equally flexible every day. So I think through flexibility, we learn a lot about ourselves, and it really helps us prime our mindset for the fast-paced world we live in. Of course, what comes with many firsts is growth. And what's interesting is that growth, adventure, and playfulness, the three next ones that we have here on the slide, these are actually human needs. It's once the very basic needs like shelter, food, and water are covered, very quickly what comes is connection, social connection, right? And then adventure, playfulness, growth, learning. Because I think we see that sometimes when we feel a bit stuck in life, these are typically phases or moments when there's a lot of routine in our life, and we lack the adventure, the playfulness, the growth part. So as soon as we bring these into our lives, we feel much more energized, much more alive, and we also consider life to be more, yeah, sensual. And I like to use the word erotic at times as well, because the erotic is very, very closely linked to aliveness, yeah, to the newness also. But for example, flirting, what attracts us in these moments is really the unknown. So even though we are very aware, I think that the unknown is not something we often automatically embrace, because yeah, it's the unknown, right? It's not the comfort, it's outside the so often cited comfort zone. But if we think of these erotic moments, the flirting, and it doesn't necessarily mean to be in between, in an intimate setup. It really can mean with life. Are we looking at life in this playful way? And this whole package is basically available through what I believe is the most powerful and the simplest approach to living a life that is joyful, that brings us sustainable, lasting happiness, and that just makes us feel alive. And when we feel alive, people around us notice it, and so many things become more alive around us as well. That's the power of the many firsts approach to life, the lifestyle. Now, resilience, I think I would like to dive into that a bit more, because resilience was a word or a concept, or yeah, for me, that I was not comfortable with. So I really had to befriend resilience and discover resilience, because I understand now, at the point in life where I'm now, that resilience was almost a trigger for me. And it was something that I was in denial about. So back to the change curve. I felt like, yeah, resilience, I don't know, all these people talking about resilience, I don't know what they're talking about. It's overrated. And eventually, I had to acknowledge that it's just that I have no connection. I have no relationship to resilience, because, and that's the uncomfortable truth, I didn't have any, or not much, clearly much less than today. And again, I noticed that through the many firsts lifestyle, which I started living it a few years ago, and there was this thing that to me did not fully make sense. There was this attraction to many firsts, right? To exploring, to to discovering, and at the same time, it didn't make sense in my mind that putting myself into uncomfortable situations again and again through exposing myself to the unknown, why would that be so attractive? But over time, I started to notice because it is building the resilience. And the more resilient we are, the happier we feel. And not just happiness in a moment. And that's another thing that came to me through many firsts and building this resilience. Because in the past, when someone asked me, "Are you happy?" I struggled to answer, because sometimes when these people asked me in a specific moment, maybe I felt neutral in that moment. Yeah, not unhappy, not kind of, yeah, just I felt. I felt it was a bit wrong to say happy, because I always envisioned that happy must feel like, really like wanting to hug the world. But over time, I started to understand that what I was actually looking and longing for, what my soul was longing for, was a foundational feeling of happiness, not these momentary spikes. They are nice, don't get me wrong. These moments of bliss, I would say, even, right? These peak moments. But in the meantime, if we take the image of a thermostat, the thermostat, the temperature for me, which was much lower in terms of resilience and happiness in the past, it has considerably moved up through my many first lifestyle. And now it's just, even if it at times lowers a bit, because yeah, let's face it, right? I don't think that anyone is just always very balanced, and maybe I personally probably would not even want that, because I would like to be part of life and society fully, right? I would not necessarily want to retrieve and just live a very peaceful, undisturbed life. I think there is something about navigating through challenges, and that's where resilience is so powerful. This is what's being built with many firsts. And I experienced it very clearly a few months ago when I was on a tram. So where I live, we have these trains running through the city like a bus on rails, right? And I was in there with two full bags, one bag in each hand. And yeah, it was towards the evening on that day, and I knew that as soon as I got home, I would have to pack, because the next early morning I would be flying and somewhere for work. And in my head, I was already like, okay, this and this, and it's already almost 6 o'clock, and I have to do this and that. And the tram was approaching my stop where I had to get off. And as the tram approaches the stop, I am already getting up and walking to the door to get out. But before the tram stopped, like naturally, normally in at the tram stop, it broke very, very abruptly. And because I was already walking, I couldn't hold on to a rail or something, because anyway, my hands were full with the bags. And what happened was I was, of course, kind of lifted in the air from the strong braking of the tram. And I knew in that moment, I will now fly. I will fall. I will probably fall badly and hurt myself. And still, in that moment, I had the thought, okay, let's just fly/fall. And there was not a minimal kind of panic about it or worry. In the past, a few years ago, I would have been like, oh no, why is this happening to me now? Why? Or things like, why couldn't I be more careful? Why did I have to get up earlier than when the tram stopped? Why did I actually end up on this tram right away? And what if I now need to go and see a doctor? Will the doctor's office still be open? What if not then? And tomorrow the flight, and I will not manage to pack. Maybe the doctor will say I cannot travel. Then I will have to cancel. I will have to tell my boss. I will have to, yeah, this would have happened in my brain a few years ago. And as I briefly described before, in that moment, these are the moments in everyday life where I'm so grateful for my resilience and I can just let things happen. And you know what? I landed. I landed in the middle of the aisle, you know, where there are seats on both sides. Again, in the past, I would have felt embarrassed. I would have gotten up very quickly and probably rushed out of the tram before even checking if I was okay. And it still gives me such a good feeling that in the meantime, I can really, like on that day, I was sitting there looking at the people, many of them, you know, were checking in on me, like, are you okay? And I could really just be there, present, check, am I okay? Yes, nothing broken. I could get up calmly and walk out, like really, as I said, present. And this is one of the best feelings. And guess what? I didn't have to go see a doctor. Yes, I got bruises everywhere, but I could travel the next day. I managed to pack to get ready in time. Nothing had happened in that way. Well, yeah, I fell, but I didn't worry. I didn't panic. Yeah, and this is just something that's so helpful in everyday life. And I would also like to touch upon courage, as we're talking about what comes with many firsts, right? So clearly the resilience and the courage piece. What I really like is to understand, and I find this so powerful, that the origin of the word courage is the Latin word cor. And I used to have Latin in school and I loved it. I loved to understand these, you know, the etymology of words. So yeah, courage comes from cor and cor means heart. And basically, when it takes courage to do something, and that's typically the case with first times, especially as adults. I think the small children, if we observe small children, they seem to be very open, right? I mean, imagine what we all as children, what first times we all have experienced or did experience back then. I mean, just yeah, the first, really the first step we took and the first word we said, the first time we ate something, the first time we rode a bicycle, the first day in school, and so on. So childhood is full of firsts, but as we move into adulthood, we become a bit more, yeah, a bit more routine favoring, a bit more, sometimes people say risk averse, but yeah. And still we have, I mean, there's this soul, this heart in us that has dreams, like back to the quote from the beginning, we all have dreams of love, life, and adventure. And these dreams take courage because they're in the heart. So this is usually my motivator when I notice that something takes courage. I just know it's the reminder that it is something that is really dear to me, that means so much to me, that even though I'm a bit scared now, thanks to the courage, thanks to my heart, I will still embrace it, face it, and still move forward. And of course, my good friend resilience is with me and is such a strong companion to have on this journey called life. I think typically courage, and that's these are the other two words I put here, care and candor. And interestingly, all three have a C at the beginning. For me and my journey of courage, there have been, I mean, there are still moments where it takes a lot of courage for me to express something. especially if it's in these conversations where I know I need to bring a message across to someone that might not be very comfortable. I mean, first of all, not comfortable for me to deliver, but also for the person to receive. Because, yeah, I still prefer it if people are happy with what I have for them. But I also know at times it's necessary, especially with my most intimate environment and the people around me, to express myself, to make them understand what may be difficult for me, and to not just be silent like I did in the past. This was my default habit, to not express when things hurt me or were difficult for me. So as I started practicing expressing these, what I worried about first was that people would take this as I don't love them anymore, right? If I bring something up that could come across like feedback, that could be like criticism or so. So the big worry that people would not like me anymore, not love me anymore. So like the girl in the bathroom story, remember that she said like, now they will say she still doesn't get it, right? So that was my big worry. But through the journey of taking the courage to show up, to express myself, to move forward in the row, not hide in the back, not be silent, but talk about it, bring it up. I noticed that it is possible, even if I have an uncomfortable message to deliver, that I know I still care about these people. And it's actually because I care so much that I express what I feel, because I think it matters to our relationship. It's important for them to understand how I feel and not just assume that they will know, or they would know anyway because they know me, right? And that I can bring this across, and that the candor doesn't actually hurt the relationship. And if it does, then probably sooner or later something would have hurt it anyway. But this care and candor combination is basically, the candor piece came in through the resilience also, because I know that I have the strength and the skills to deliver a message in a way that also shows that I'm still caring about the person. And this is actually powerful, not just, let's say, in a private, most intimate environment of friends and family. It's also really a key skill, I think, at work and in leadership. Care and candor, and the courage it takes to show up, to express, and through that, to also express care and to connect more deeply with ourselves and the people around us. Moving on to what helps me really, when, again, we're human beings, right? And also I, at times, of course, still worry, right? When I take another courageous step into an area that is unknown to me. And what really inspired me was when I came across this quote by Mark Twain, where he says that he spent most of his life worrying about things that never happened. Let me repeat that in his words. I have spent most of my life worrying about things that never happened. And isn't that so true? If you think about the worries you have, because these worries may keep us from taking these courageous steps, right? But there's a few more companions that I have in case this comes up. If you're now all motivated, all in for the many firsts lifestyle, and you still get these moments at times where you're like, oh, really, can I do this? And what if? Then remember Mark Twain, and then these other three companions that I put here. One is a very simple one, and let me start in the middle. Why worry? There's even a song, more than one song, I think, out there. Just a simple question, why worry? And this is actually a good reflection at times, because it really helps us understand ourselves much better. And if we sit with this question for a bit, there may be something that we notice that comes from somewhere, which may also be a pattern that we built over time, and that it may be time to let go of and to overcome. What I also like is this acronym for fear, that it is actually that the letters FEAR stand for false evidence appearing real. Back to what or which of the things that we ever worried about have really happened. And again, we have these worries because something in us wants to protect us. So this is not all negative. It's just about being present, being aware that we get a warning message from our system, right? Saying like, not sure if this is a good thing, and then talk back to it. So ask the voice saying like, not sure if that's the right moment or if this is really something you can do. Why? Why do you worry? What's the worst case? And let me tell you, we do live in the safest of all times and the best of all times and the healthiest of all times, even if there's, of course, not everything is rosy and happy in this world. But still, we can also, that's another, I feel, companion to just have the reassurance that in the end, especially if we can fall back on our resilience, worst case, it's another first time. Another first time for our list and another story to tell. And the worry that I know, I mean, again, it's a very personal one that I have been working on, is this worry that others may turn away from us. Typically we also talk about people pleasers, right? To just the awareness that yes, I may not be very happy right now because I'm uncomfortable. I need to deliver a message that's not comfortable, or I need to bring myself into a situation that's not just comfortable because it's unknown. I'm going to a place I've never been to. I don't know what expects me there. I need to change something in how I spend money so that I can achieve my goals and so on. So right now, I may not be happy, or someone else may not be happy through or by what I'm doing, but it's okay. It is okay. Again, one step back. Why worry? Because, and this is like the stock market for those of you who invest, right? It is on a specific day the curve may go down. And if we panic, then yeah, this is of course something that's not comfortable if we would want to go through these emotional dips. But if we trust and look at the curve and zoom out a bit and look at it over time, we see that it still goes up, even if it sometimes dips a bit, or dips maybe a bit more, but it comes up again. And that's exactly yeah, how it will be with our happiness. So through the many firsts lifestyle, we move away from nurturing us on momentary happy, peak happy moments. And again, these are still there, they're still part of it, but we're bringing up the thermostat of happiness, of resilience, of courage, much more. And through that, our curve, the steady, sustainable happiness and feeling alive curve, is steadily moving up one first time at a time. And I hope you are still collecting firsts as we're going through this workshop, and just keep adding to your list of firsts, no matter in what space. Now, another important tool to use on your many firsts journey is the awareness that we have a socially established habit to apologize for first times. And what I have here on the slide is a screenshot of a story on the Many First Instagram account, or my Instagram account, where I shared a recent experience where I was on a flight and I was asked if I wanted to eat because they were about to serve a meal. And I said, no, thank you, I'm not hungry, I won't have anything. So the flight attendant moved away, and then just a little bit later, her colleague came, and came with a tray full with a full meal, and I told her, no, thank you, I'm not eating. And she looked at me and kind of hesitated, and then she looked at me again and said, but no, no, like she explained to me what's on the tray, and I said, no, 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 thank you, I'm not eating. And the colleague who had asked me before was kind of moving up from behind. And then the flight attendant with the tray said, oh, sorry, did I make a mistake? You know, this is my first time working in business class. I'm still learning. And I was looking at her and I said, no, really, it's all good. Thanks for asking. But no, it's just that I'm not hungry. And then the colleague behind her said, yeah, it's her first day and she's doing great, isn't she? And I said, yeah, of course, very well done. Nothing to apologize for. Thank you so much. And then they moved away. And as I started reflecting on that interaction, first of all, it hit me that we have this habit to apologize for first times. And it is true that when we do something for the first time, we don't excel at it. No, it's just us doing something for the first time, right? But really, I think it comes very naturally to us in our society to apologize for that. And with many first, the many first lifestyle, we turn this around and we celebrate each and every single first time, because these are the necessary steps into where into the life we want to build and create for ourselves, right? I'm very sure the flight attendant on that first day in business class is actually, that's where she wants to be. It must have been a career move for her that she's actually excited about. And it hurt me to understand that she felt apologetic about it, instead of standing there with a smile and thinking, hey, look at this first time I'm creating. And I just think it is obviously something that we have socially established. But in the end, I really wonder how it makes us feel, as I think we all, if not consciously, then subconsciously, we understand that people would be reassuring us if we say, like, this is the first time, my apologies, right? What we typically hear is, no, it's all okay, you're doing fine. But we also know we're not doing fine because it's the first time, right? We're learning. It's really that we're not excelling yet. So we also do not fully believe. I mean, of course, we are doing well for a first time, but it is a very kind of special setup for these kind of conversations, because somehow someone is getting reassured. But I believe if we get this reassurance, because it is a socially established pattern, it doesn't really make us feel any better, right? Because it's probably not the truth or very authentic, but rather a habitual response. So try celebrating the next time and telling people with a smile, hey, I'm here for the first time and I'm so excited about the opportunity. Now, I would like you, as we're at the beginning of the year, right? There's a lot of time to create wonderfully meaningful and powerful and healthy and functional first times in many different categories and in all areas of your life. And I put 6 here that I typically mention, but I'm fully aware there may be more. And I would be super curious to also learn from you what categories of first you establish for yourselves. So for now, I will pause for, let's say, a minute or two. And I would like to ask you that in each of the categories you see here, or at least half of them, you write down first times that you want to create, that you will create. And let me tell you, it is not trying to create. The word try doesn't exist or isn't a yeah, I would avoid that, because it just takes away some of the power, right? If I try to tell someone something, or if I say I will tell the person this and that, it feels different. The commitment is there when we're not trying, is fully there. So with that, I pause and I let you, again, it can be, I mean, whatever we may call small, it is just important that we keep moving in the right direction, and you can fully tailor these first times to where you're at, what's possible for you in your environment. Go and enjoy and already start celebrating as you're writing this. It's the first time you're creating first times at the beginning of a year in so many categories already in your mind. And that's the first step. So go, enjoy, have fun, take it playful. One more minute. Keep creating firsts. Now on paper, soon in life, maybe already now in your mind. You're a creative being, curious, resilient, full of life, empathy for others and yourself, love and joy with every first time. Keep creating. Now slowly come to an end. Put your pen down. Look at your list with a smile. Your first, many firsts list. Just take a deep breath. Celebrating this first time. Take a sip of water. Refresh. And as we now wrote a list and maybe created some first, let's say, more in theory, let's now move into practice and really create a very powerful first time right here, right now, together. One that can change your life and potentially the life of someone else. And one that I will celebrate you big time for. And you can practice celebrating yourself as well. You know the recipe in that sense, you know the approach. It's about courage, about knowing we're connecting with our heart if we take these courageous steps. And by the way, biochemically in ourselves, the the yeah, the reaction that's happening in us when we're excited and anxious are actually biochemically the same. It's just the twist or let's say the outcome that we project that gives us either excitement or anxiety. If we are more leaning towards or envisioning a positive outcome, it's what we feel as excitement. And if we're envisioning the, let's say, worst case scenario, it's the anxiety, right? It's the worry, again, back to that. So it's basically up to us again. It's our choice which twist we want to give it. And if we're very honest, these courageous moments where we feel, we may think we feel worry, but if we're very, very, very honest, isn't it also excitement that we feel at the same time very often? So yeah, courage. And then just knowing, and that's the resilience part, that through showing courage again and again, through taking the courageous steps, we practice being comfortable with discomfort. And that keeps building our resilience, our superpower for this fast-paced, fast-changing world. And this builds the lasting, grounding, foundational happiness that we can just then lead our lives on. And if you would ever like to share your firsts with us, then there will be the list of social media channels and emails that where we can be contacted at the end, because we're going through an exercise now. And after that exercise, I will not say much more. I will let you go with it, or yeah, because there's actually also an action that will follow right away. So with that, could you grab some paper? Quite a few pages you should have. We're going to write. Handwrite is important. It doesn't matter if it's, no one else will read it. It's just for you. And you need a pen, obviously. And the exercise will last for about 10 minutes. And after that, there will just be a few comments from my side. And then that was the workshop. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you did too. Again, can't wait to hear your first stories, because stories is what connects us, what encourages us, what empowers us in the end. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful, magical year with so many powerful fasts that I know you have the power to create in yourself. With that, let's dive into this fast time. It's a writing exercise. I will give you prompts, and whenever you hear the prompt, you just start writing right away without thinking, just whatever comes to your mind. Just write, 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 don't stop. Even if you think, okay, I've used up everything that's in me for this prompt, keep going, again, with whatever comes to your mind. Also, this may be a bit of a surprise, but make sure that your cell phone, your mobile phone, is within reach somewhere. You don't need to look at it ideally, but just have it somewhere. And now let's start. First of all, if it's available for you, close your eyes briefly. And then think of a person that's very dear to you, that you truly, deeply love, a person that matters a lot to you. It may also be that you once loved them and maybe not in the same way anymore, but someone that comes to your mind again and again, someone who's still alive. And then the first prompt, now with this person, with the thoughts about the person, with maybe even seeing the person in front of you, envisioning him, her, they, them. Write about how you're feeling. I am feeling. Right. With the person in mind. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Keep writing. How are you feeling? Think about the person. Tell them how you're feeling. Next prompt. What you learned from them, how they inspired you, right? I learned from you. You inspired me too. I learned from you. You inspired me too. Right? Keep writing. I learned from you. You inspired me too. Or also now, I keep learning from you. You keep inspiring me. Keep writing no matter what. Keep writing. Next prompt. Something or some things I never told you. Something or some things I never told you. Keep writing. Something I never told you. Or these are things I never told you. Keep writing. Whatever's coming up, it's okay. Remember getting comfortable with the discomfort and the first times. The care and candor. The next prompt. How I would like to make our relationship better. How I would like to make our relationship better. Whatever is coming up. Emotionally, physically, mentally, it's all welcome. First times, getting comfortable with discomfort, building resilience. Care and candor. How I would like to make our relationship better. Keep writing. Next prompt. I would like to apologize for these things. I would like to apologize for something I didn't do, something I didn't say, something I didn't allow to happen, something I couldn't receive, something I couldn't give. I would like to apologize for deep writing. Get comfortable with the discomfort. Anything is welcome, whatever comes up. Keep writing. Good. You're moving into the last prompt. You're doing very well. Now imagine you will only see this person for 5 more minutes and then never again. Write everything, write anything. Tell the person what you would miss most. Tell them everything, 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 everything. Only 5 more minutes with them. 5 more minutes. Tell them anything, everything that comes to mind. Keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. Only 3 more minutes. Tell them everything, everything. Anything that's coming up. Emotions, welcome. Be vulnerable. 2 more minutes and they will be gone. Tell them everything, everything. Keep going, keep writing. Creating fast times. Building courage. You're doing so well. 1 more minute and they will be gone. Tell them, tell them. Okay, finish the sentence. Finish the sentence you're on. And then put your pen down. Take a deep breath. You just created a first time. Congratulations. And this is what we do with the Many First lifestyle. I celebrate your courage. I celebrate your first time. I celebrate life. I celebrate you. And I hope you do the same and that you get comfortable with it. And now grab your phone, open the camera to take a picture. Take what you just wrote in one hand and take the phone into your other hand, facing each other. Then take the arms up, and when they're up, 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 look up and take a picture. Come down, and now call the person. Call the person who you wrote about. Call her, him, call them, and read the letter to them. Don't forget, I celebrate you. Let's celebrate life. Let's celebrate first. Let's celebrate courage. Go. I'm proud of you. I would love to hear from you about this first and all the other powerful and meaningful firsts that you keep creating. And let's celebrate them together, one first at a time. Thank you for being here today. All my love and courage. Ciao.